If you're a fan of palace dramas, you probably know her well. In Ruyi's royal love in the palace, she is the infamous Gao Xiyue. She's arrogant, petty, and a masterful pipa player who is defined by her childish jealousy. In Story of Yanxi Palace, she is the condescending and dominant Gao Ningxing. Here, she uses her father's power and the emperor's favor to act as a vicious and powerful schemer, using violence to hurt and even kill her enemies. So arrogant and childish in one drama, vicious and brutal in the other. These are the modern interpretations of Imperial Noble Consort Huixin, known more commonly as Consort Gao. This sounds like a terrible person. Was she really like this in real life? Surprisingly, historical records tell a completely different story. The real Consort Gao was praised by Emperor Qianlong himself as gentle and respectful, talented in literature, and a wise advisor. Her unique and profound favor was clear from the very beginning. Palace records show that when Emperor Qianlong ordered personalized plaques of honor in the first year of his reign, he commissioned them for only 3 women: his mother, the Empress Dowager, his wife, the Empress, and Consort Gao. From the start, she was publicly placed in a league of her own, as one of the most important women in his life. Hey everyone, and welcome to Tea with Amy. Today we're uncovering the true story of Imperial Noble Consort Huixin. Was she really the arrogant villain we see in C-dramas? If she wasn't, why is she portrayed this way? Before becoming an imperial consort, she was Lady Gao. And to really understand her life, we have to start with her family. The Gao family served in the imperial household department. They were not Manchu nobility, they were bondservants, Han Chinese bondservants. Yes, a lot of Emperor Qianlong's favorite consorts did come from bondservant families. Maybe that was his thing. A common modern theory even suggests that this was why step-empress Nala got mad at him. Lady Gao was born around 1711 into this bondservant family. Her father, Gao Bing, was a trusted court official in the imperial household department. But his career didn't stay there. He was a brilliant administrator, and he quickly caught the eye of Emperor Yongzhen, the father of Emperor Qianlong. Emperor Yongzhen was famous for being an workaholic, who prized competence and loyalty above all else. He didn't care that Gao Bing was just a bondservant. He cared that Gao Bing got the job done. As a daughter of a bondservant family, Lady Gao was not allowed to participate in the main imperial draft, which was reserved for high-status Manchu noble daughters. Instead, she had to enter the Neiwufu Shenshou, the draft for the imperial household department. This draft was primarily for selecting palace maids and attendants. It was not for finding future empresses. To learn more about the imperial draft and bondservants, check out my other video about it, linked in the description below. Around 1725, at about 14 years old, Lady Gao entered this draft and was assigned as a gege to the household of Prince Hongli, the future Emperor Qianlong. This was not the gege of a princess, but instead the gege of a concubine of a prince. In her time as a gege, unofficial accounts suggest that she built a deep personal connection with Prince Hongli. These stories claim that in the prince's household, the young Lady Gao was lively and clever. She was gentle and virtuous, and when Prince Hongli was worried or sad, she would comfort him. Most importantly, they discussed history and wrote poetry together. Prince Hongli was passionate and literary-minded. In Lady Gao, he may have found not just a pretty face, but an intellectual companion. And this is where the timeline gets really interesting. Her father's career began to truly take off. In 1726, Gao Bing was given his first major assignment outside the palace as the superintendent of a weaving factory. From there, he just kept climbing. He proved himself to be a brilliant water conservancy expert as Vice Director General of Hedong Rivers. That might sound boring, but in the Qing Dynasty, it meant he was the man responsible for preventing the floods that could kill millions and ruin the empire. In 1732, Gao Bing was appointed to the critical and high-level position of sole censor of Lianghuai. This was not just a regular job. The Lianghuai salt monopoly was the single biggest source of tax revenue for the empire, and the salt censor was the emperor's personal official sent to guard it. It was a position of immense power and trust. And then, just a year later, he was appointed to acting director general of Jiangnan rivers. If the salt center guarded the empire's economy, the director general of rivers guarded its life. He was now the man in charge of all the canals and flood control, responsible for the lives of millions. These were extremely powerful positions. Gao Bing had made himself indispensable. But let's backtrack a little bit. In 1727, Lady Fu Cha, the future empress, was selected through the imperial draft to become Prince Hongli's primary consort. Around 1734, Lady Nala, who would become the future step-empress, was selected by Emperor Yongzheng to enter Prince Hongli's life as his secondary consort. And here's the tea. In 1734, Lady Gao was also elevated to secondary consort by direct order from Emperor Yongzheng himself. This was a huge deal. Lady Fu Cha and Lady Nala both came from prestigious Manchu noble families, while Lady Gao came from a bondservant family. In a typical prince's household, a prince was limited to only one primary consort and two secondary consort positions. By this moment in time, it was already widely believed that Prince Hongli was on track to become the next emperor. To become a secondary consort of a prince who was probably going to become the next emperor was definitely a sign of great favor and prestige. It seems Lady Gao's personal favor and her father's political power rose at the exact same time. She had won the prince's personal affection, while her father had won Emperor Yongzheng's political trust. In 1734, these two paths converged, making Lady Gao one of the most important women in Prince Hongli's household, and setting the stage for her unprecedented rise. But remember, Lady Gao's elevation came from Emperor Yongzheng. Did Prince Hongli persuade the emperor to do this? We had no way of knowing for sure. But many historians believe that this elevation of Lady Gao was political in nature, intended to set up Prince Hongli for a smooth reign. By pre-selecting an effective administrative team and tying the capable and reliable Gao Bing to Prince Hongli, Emperor Yongzheng was transferring over the critical management of the empire's infrastructure. Lady Gao's family was no longer a simple bondservant family. They were a rising power that was politically connected. In 1735, Emperor Yongzheng died, and Prince Hongli ascended the dragon throne as Emperor Qianlong. For the women of his household, this was the moment of truth. Who would be favored and who would be forgotten? This was the moment that would define the rest of Lady Gao's life. As expected per protocol, the primary consort, Lady Fu Cha, was made empress. Lady Nala was elevated to the rank of consort, immediately skipping all of the lower consort ranks. But then, in a shocking move, Emperor Qianlong elevates Lady Gao all the way to noble consort. Lady Gao became the only consort of Emperor Qianlong's reign to enter the imperial harem at the high rank of noble consort. While there is the higher rank of Imperial Noble Consort, it was a special rank that was typically only given to honor deceased consorts, or to consorts who were acting in place of an empress. This means that Noble Consort was normally the highest possible rank for a consort, second only to the empress. This was a massive statement. Remember that Lady Nala was a Manchu nobility. Her father was a high-ranking military commander. She had the lineage, the status, and the Manchu pedigree. By elevating Lady Gao to the highest possible rank, even over Lady Nala, it was a slap in the face to the Manchu nobility. As an interesting side note, Lady Gao did not receive a special character upon her promotion to noble consort. This was in line with early Qing Dynasty tradition. However, she was the last noble consort for which this was the case. Every single noble consort after her received a special character upon their elevation to noble consort. At the same time, the Gao family was fully elevated to the Manchu border yellow banner, making them a part of the Manchu nobility. They were no longer bondservants. After the official mourning period for Emperor Yongzheng ended, Emperor Qianlong held the formal ceremonies for his new consorts in 1737. And this is where we find a scandal that is written down in the official palace records. We first need to understand that in the Forbidden City, ritual is power. Who prostrates to whom defines the entire hierarchy. A prostration is the ultimate sign of submission. And in the court's rigid hierarchy, a princess by birth outranked a consort. But during Lady Gao's promotion ceremony, Emperor Qianlong ordered all of his sisters and the wives of the top-ranking princess to go to her palace and perform the full prostration ceremony for her. This was unheard of. These women were the elite of Manchu nobility. They would normally only do this for the empress, but to just a noble consort, and one with bond-servant origins at that. It was a stunning and likely humiliating breach of ritual. He was forcing the highest-born woman in the empire to bow to the bondservant he had fallen in love with. In 1749, shortly after Empress Fucha had passed away, there was another round of adjustment to consort ranks, and Consort Gao was promoted to noble consort. The Ministry of Rites asked Emperor Qianlong if he would like to keep with precedence and also order a full prostration ceremony for her, to which Emperor Qianlong replied, "That level of honor is only for someone whose first rank is noble consort. For those that are already imperial consorts, the ceremony should be reduced." And with this excuse, he made sure that no other noble consorts received that same level of honor during his reign. From the start of his rule, he had placed her on a pedestal just shy of the empress herself. The character of Gao Xiyue in the sea drama Ruyi's Royal Love in the Palace is famously not very bright. She is full of passion with little strategy. She is arrogant, loud, and easily manipulated. A woman defined by her childish jealousy. Interestingly, historical records claim the exact opposite for noble Consort Gao, praising her for her mind. Official records describe her as skilled in literature and talented in writing. Most importantly, it was recorded that she was known to offer words of admonishment. This was a woman who gave the emperor advice. According to the history of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Qianlong ordered a painting of Banji refusing the carriage to be hung in the Palace of Eternal Longevity, which was noble Consort Gao's residence in the Forbidden City. So who was this Banji, and why does this matter? Ban Jieyu was a famously virtuous and brilliant consort from the Han Dynasty almost 2,000 years ago. According to legend, the emperor, her husband, was so charmed by her that he invited her to ride in his personal grand carriage with him, a sign of incredible favor. But Ban Jieyu refused. She told the emperor that the history's wise and great rulers were always pictured with their ministers and advisors. It was only the decadent, foolish rulers who were seen with their beautiful women. She warned him that riding with her would distract him from state affairs and damage his reputation. She became the ultimate symbol, not of a beautiful lover, but of a wise, moral, and non-jealous consort who put the empire before her own desires. Across from this painting, Emperor Qianlong hung his own poem about this very painting. Through this painting and his poem, Emperor Qianlong compared noble Consort Gao to the legendary Ban Jieyu herself, effectively proclaiming that you are my Banji, you are my wise advisor. To learn more about Ban Jieyu and the lady instructress, you can see the full admonitions of the instructress to the court ladies in my other video, linked below in the description. In addition to acting as a personal advisor to Emperor Qianlong, historical records also state that noble Consort Gao was officially responsible for assisting the empress in managing the harem. It is believed that noble Consort Gao and Empress Fucha were close, with some accounts claiming that they were like sisters. Some stories even describe that noble Consort Gao would often accompany the empress to lift her spirits. They were best friends. This created a fascinating dynamic. Gao Bing had become a pillar of the outer government, while noble Consort Gao was a central figure in the inner palace. Together, this father-daughter pair became one of the most powerful units in the empire. In fact, her position was so special that Emperor Qianlong never appointed another noble consort during her lifetime. From 1735 to 1745, the hierarchy was clear. There was the empress, and then there was noble Consort Gao. No one else was on her level. For 10 years, noble Consort Gao was Emperor Qianlong's first and only noble consort, his wise advisor and a pillar of the inner court. But unfortunately, historical records describe her as suffering from chronic illness. This illness may have been linked to another central fact of her life. Noble Consort Gao was childless. Despite her high rank and the emperor's obvious affection, she never bore a child. In a system where a consort's status was so often tied to motherhood, this makes her unchallenged position as the first and only noble consort even more remarkable. In 1745, on the very first day of the Lunar New Year, she fell gravely ill. For over 20 days, Emperor Qianlong watched as she declined. In a desperate and heartfelt move, Emperor Qianlong decided to do something that will once again push the imperial rules. He issued an edict promoting her to Imperial Noble Consort. As I mentioned earlier, Imperial Noble Consort was a special rank that was typically only given to honor deceased consorts, or to consorts who were acting in place of an empress. But in this case, noble Consort Gao was still alive, and Empress Fucha was still alive. This elevation was a huge shock to the entire court, and was seen as harmful and unfair to Empress Fucha. First, the full prostration ceremony, and now this. It was clear Emperor Qianlong didn't care about the rules for noble Consort Gao. He just wanted to make sure that she knew that he was giving her this honor, that she knew she was his imperial noble consort. Sadly, the title was just a comfort. 2 days later, on the 25th day of February, the newly promoted Imperial Noble Consort Gao died. She was around 34 years old. Emperor Qianlong was devastated. He immediately granted her a beautiful posthumous name, Huixin. Hui means intelligent or insightful, and Xian means virtuous. While any and all of the characters that were granted to consorts all had positive and wonderful meanings, the character Xian was one of the most honorable characters that could be achieved. To be virtuous was not just a compliment, it was a profound judgment of a person's moral and intellectual merit. This was an honor so profound, it led to a fascinating story about Empress Fucha. According to the draft history of Qing, biographies of empresses and consorts, Empress Fucha was with Emperor Qianlong when he made the decision to name Imperial Noble Consort Gao as Huixin. She was so inspired by this, she personally requested that her own posthumous name one day include that same powerful character for virtuous. Emperor Qianlong agreed. Later, after Empress Fucha passed away, in 1748, he would honor her request, naming her Xiaoxian, which meant filial and virtuous. Imperial Noble Consort Gao wasn't Empress Fucha's minion or rival. She was a woman who set a standard of honor so high that the perfect empress herself hoped to one day match it. His honors for her didn't stop there. He ordered an extremely grand funeral for her. Palace records show that just before she died, a special high-specification memorial hall was built just to house her coffin. The mourning rituals that were commended were also on an immense scale. He ordered 108 lamas to chant for her for 120 days, and then 108 Buddhist monks to chant for another 120 days. That's nearly 8 months of non-stop, large-scale prayer, a testament to his grief. And then, in 1752, a major imperial burial was held, and Empress Fucha was buried in Emperor Qianlong's own imperial tomb, the Yulin Mausoleum. And at that same time, the coffin of Imperial Noble Consort Gao was also moved there. This was the final ultimate honor. Only 5 consorts were ever buried directly in Emperor Qianlong's tomb, and she was one of them. Imperial Noble Consort Huixin's death cemented her legacy. She was honored, beloved, and buried in the imperial tomb. But that does not sound like the life of a villain at all. So why is she often portrayed as the villain in modern retellings? The answer most likely has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with her family and the price of the burden of favor. Way back in 1735, on the very same day that Lady Gao was promoted to noble consort, Emperor Qianlong sent a private message to her father, Gao Bing. In it, he wrote, "Your daughter has been named noble consort, and your status has been lifted. But this is a private grace. You cannot rely on it. If you can be diligent, loyal, and serve the country, you will naturally be rewarded. However, if you are lacking or not consistent, then you must be punished. And how can your punishment be the same as that of a commoner?" Under Gao Bing's leadership, the Gao family heeded the emperor's warning and was loyal and diligent. And Gao Bing was ultimately promoted to Grand Secretary in 1747, 2 years after his daughter's death. This was the pinnacle of a civil official's career, effectively making him one of the most senior ministers in the entire imperial government. But in 1755, the powerful and respectable Gao Bing died. And perhaps this is the moment things started to go wrong. With Gao Bing gone, the leadership of the Gao family fell to his son, Gao Hen, and he began to see the emperor's favor not as a responsibility, but instead as a blank check. Fast forward to 1768, Imperial Noble Consort Huixin has now been dead for over 20 years. Her brother, Gao Hen, and his son, Gao Pu, had been riding her legacy, holding some of the most lucrative positions in the empire. But they had gotten comfortable in their family's status, and they had forgotten the emperor's warnings. They had become greedy, they had become lazy, and they had become sloppy. And then they got caught. The charges were for massive, staggering corruption. Gao Hen was sentenced to death. But then, the late Empress Fu Cha's brother, the respected Fu Cha Fu Hen, personally stepped in to plead for Gao Hen's life. He used the magic words. He begged the emperor to spare Gao Hen for the sake of the deceased Imperial Noble Consort Huixin. This was the ultimate test, a plea from his true love's brother, invoking the memory of his wise advisor consort. But Emperor Qianlong's response was ice cold. He was furious. He looked at his own brother-in-law and replied with a hard rebuke. If the empress's own brother broke the law, what should be done? Fu Cha Fu Hen was terrified into silence, and Gao Hen was executed. Later, when Gao Pu was also executed, Emperor Qianlong claimed that he could not show any leniency in order to preserve the honorable memory of Imperial Noble Consort Huixin. Some unofficial accounts do claim that Emperor Qianlong tried to warn them a few times before sentencing them to death. Unfortunately, they did not repent and refused to change their ways, ultimately leaving Emperor Qianlong no choice. The Gao family's power was broken, but their story was not over. In 1817, over 80 years after Imperial Noble Consort Huixin's death, Emperor Qing issued an edict to add the Manchu honorific of Jia to the Gao family's name, formalizing their Manchu clan name as Gao Jia. Was this a final honor to their family? It is not clear. Some historians believe that Emperor Qing was simply correcting inconsistent names within the Manchu banners. But at the very least, it was a reminder of the honor that the Gao family once held. And so, this brings us to our theory for why Imperial Noble Consort Huixin is often portrayed as a villain today. While historical records clearly describe her as honorable and virtuous, the corruption and infamy that her family unleashed unfortunately cast a much longer shadow. And what better villain than one from a powerful and corrupt family? The difference between the wise advisor of history and the vicious villain of television is jarring. This discrepancy and the complete distortion of historical figures got so extreme that it may have even influenced China's 2019 crackdown on dramas centered on palace intrigue. The official reason given for the crackdown is because of concerns that they glorified palace life and court intrigue, which promoted unhealthy social trends. However, many modern C-drama fans believe that another reason was because these dramas distorted historical facts. Naturally, this sparked heated debates. Many argued that audiences understand these dramas were purely for entertainment, and even if the characters strayed far from recorded history, so what? Real history can be dull, and this is fun. The creator of Story of Yanxi Palace, Yu Zhen, even famously claimed, as long as people are watching and the show is popular, the goal is achieved. Ironically, this controversy gave rise to a new wave of fact-checking among Chinese drama fans. And many producers have since shifted to using entirely fictional dynasties to avoid the strict review process. But it all brings us back to our final big question about Imperial Noble Consort Huixin. We've seen that her real-life legacy was one of honor and virtue, but her family's legacy was one of infamous corruption. Do you think it's fair that her modern legacy appears to be defined by her family's crimes? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed today's topic, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Stay curious, stay magical.